The Linksys WRT 1900AC is probably one of the fastest routers I've had the pleasure of owning. Unfortunately, it's also one of the most expensive routers that I've also come across personally. And a question that I ask myself right now is this thing really worth the $300 price tag? So in this video, we're going to spend some quality time with the Linksys WRT 1900AC and try to answer that question. Now, as you may have known, recently Cisco actually dropped Linksys as a co-brand, and it was quickly picked up by Belkin. Now, since then, the company has been in a rebirth cycle, trying to go back to its roots. And it's no surprise that they've gone back to the original and most iconic router probably ever made, the Linksys WRT 54G. Now, in my opinion, the original Linksys WRT 54G was kind of like the Ford Model T at the time. It brought affordable, powerful wireless routing to pretty much everyone who wanted it. And the WRT 1900 is trying to follow in its great-grandfather's footsteps. Now, when we take a look at the technical specs, it's pretty much the ultimate wet dream for most networking nerds out there. It has a 1.2 GHz ARM-based dual-core processor with 256 megabytes of DDR3 and 128 flash memory. So internally, this router is more closer to a lower-end PC than a consumer-grade router. And with the possibility of loading third-party firmwares, you could maybe even overclock the CPU to get even better performance. Now, taking a look at the ports at the back, you'll find a eSATA connection as well as a USB 3/USB 2.0 ports, an Ethernet connection, and 4 gigabit Ethernet connections. Furthermore, we have 4 detachable antennas which are fully articulating, which will give you better signal triangulation. Now, physically itself, the router is really big. If you've never experienced a higher-end router, you'll notice how big it is compared to your old N or even some of those other AC routers out there. And personally, I do like the overall design. I like the sleek overall lines and the metal construction. There's also some decent ventilation and airflow, so it means that the internals will keep pretty cool, which is certainly important since this thing is going to be running 24/7. Now, the stock firmware that comes with the 1900 AC is pretty easy to get everything set up and running. Now, with its clean and simple interface, it's clearly designed for the average networking user, so it's really no surprise why networking enthusiasts are really excited to put their own third-party plugins to get even more features out of it. Of course, one of the main factors of buying a high-end router like this is going to be performance, hands down. Now, I had a chance to test it out extensively through a whole bunch of different scenarios. Now, with a wired connection over the gigabit Ethernet, we get pretty fast, high-speed transfer speeds, close to about 940 megabits per second, which is certainly not bad for most gigabit Ethernet networks. Now, taking a look at the wireless performance of the WRT 1900AC, we find some pretty decent results. In order to test this out, we've basically mapped out the house over here, as you can see, and we have 4 different locations of where we have different signal strengths and different speeds. On the first location, we have basically the router in the same room as the test location, which is just the home office, just being about 8 feet away. The next location is about 30 feet away, which is in the kitchen, and it's only one wall separating those 2 rooms. And the next location is 1 floor above the router in another room, and that is about 40 feet away. The last location is more of an extreme test. It's close to about 80 to 90 feet away, and it's 1 floor below the router. Now, here we've actually charted the actual scores, and we have both 5 and 2.4 gigahertz represented here respectively. In the office, we're getting a really decent speed since it's so close. We're getting about 460 megabytes per second read on the 5 gigahertz and about 238 megabytes per second on the 2.4 gigahertz. The kitchen is also very, very good as well. We're getting a lot better speeds on the 5 gigahertz channel, about 438 megabytes versus 168 megabytes on the 2.4 gigahertz channel. And the bedroom is also very good on the 5 gigahertz as well as the studio space. Now, the trend over here, you can see that the 5 gigahertz is certainly outperforming the 2.4 significantly. And there are some routers that will give you more equivalent 2.4 gigahertz speeds, but the Linksys over here definitely shines in that 5 gigahertz bandwidth. So if you're using this, definitely make sure that your devices have the capability to do dual band support for your Wi-Fi. Now here we'll do just a quick USB 3 performance test, and as you can see over here, we're getting really fast read speeds at about 74 megabytes per second, and our write is certainly not bad at 40 megabytes per second. And with USB 3 speeds, it's certainly fast enough for me to hook up multiple hard drives and use the system as a NAS just set up through the router. But to kind of sum all this stuff up, let's go ahead and take a look at the old WRT 54G. Sure, it wasn't the fastest, most powerful router at the time, and for a lot of people, what made the 54G special was the fact that you could install third-party firmwares and open up a whole entire world of networking capabilities that really brought new life to the router. And it looks like these same possibilities can be there with the WRT 1900AC. So that means you can install things like OpenWRT, DD-WRT, and Tomato to unlock the full capabilities of this beast. And more importantly, if the wireless community gets behind this router like they did with the original 54G, you might look at a whole next revolution, and it'll be really a great router for anyone looking to get a networking system for their home or small business that will evolve and change and grow with their ever-expanding arsenal of wireless devices. And therefore, it comes back to you again in terms of looking at these specifications and capabilities, and also evaluating the fact that all these things are subject to change if you want to install third-party firmwares and expand the horizons and capabilities of the 1900AC. I think personally, it is definitely worth the money. There's a lot of routers out there that are pretty limited in terms of their internal firmware capabilities, and it's pretty difficult to install third-party firmwares. This is pretty much a mini supercomputer internally, and I'm sure if you have the right software and firmware running, you could really do some incredible stuff with this in the future. So it's definitely worth it for me, and I would really love to hear what you guys think of the WRT 1900AC. Do you think it's worth the price, and why not? And if you like this video, please make sure to give us a thumbs up. I'm Wad from the MW Technology channel. I'll see you later. Take care.